So, in today's episode, we are answering the question: how many days do you need to hike in a week if you're preparing for a significant adventure? Now, the reason why I want to bring this up today is because just about every week I get a question from someone asking me how much hiking they need to be doing. Whether it's one of my clients that I'm working with specifically for an adventure and they're questioning whether they need to do a bit more hiking in their preparation, or whether it's just someone who's just having the first thoughts about their adventure and what they need to be doing and they're just trying to put together a rough training program. And the general thought process goes for most people and most places you go on the internet will be you need to hike multiple times a week for multiple hours to get ready for an adventure. Now, there's things where people will say, you need to do 2 long hikes a week, you need to do a short hike a week, you need a set of stairs for 2 hours, you need to do a hill climb for 2 hours or something like that. There's other ones that say you have to just simply go out walking every single day to get ready. And in all honesty, those approaches can work, and there's no doubt that people succeed on those, but it's just not incredibly efficient and it's not incredibly practical for a lot of people. So today I want to give you a little bit of insight around what I do with my clients in regards to their hiking training and the limits I put on their hiking, which can still get them ready for 95% of adventures out there. So in general, for any of my clients who's training with me, or any of my hiking or trekking clients, I should say, so people who might be training for Everest Base Camp, for Kilimanjaro, they might be preparing to through hike the Pacific Crest Trail, they might be looking at the Overland Track in Australia or Kokoda Trail, or they might simply be preparing for any other multi-day hike. More or less 95% of the time, I'll ask them to do 2 sort of hiking similar sessions a week. Now, this will involve one longer hiking session, which is usually on a weekend for people. When I say longer, I mean anywhere from 2 hours to 12 hours, really depending on the individual, what particular goal they're training for, what stage they're at or anything. But really it's something 2 hours or more when I mention longer. And then one shorter session, which is sort of hiking specific. It might not be exactly hiking, but that's when you're looking at your stairs, your hills, your loaded platform walking, your tempo walking, or it might just be a shorter hike. Generally, for 95% of the time, you can get away with these 2 sessions, and that's all the walking and hiking you do. Now, that's not to say that's all the training you do, because I generally will make up the rest of the week with a little bit of strength training, maybe some off-feet conditioning, so some cycling or some cross trainer or some swimming, and then of course a little bit of mobility and recovery, all that extra stuff that I really do love in a preparation. But for 95% of my clientele, it generally ends up being one longer hike and one shorter hike, pretty much for their entire preparations. Now, if someone has a huge amount of extra time and they've sort of, got, no work restrictions or anything like that, we might put in a third sort of moderate distance hike to sort of get a few more kilometers under their feet, but that's really not incredibly necessary for most people. Now, this might sound incredibly counterintuitive for you, and if you've gone onto the internet and researched about ways of preparing for the trail, more than likely that'll look like nowhere near enough hiking, and a lot of people do struggle with this concept. And I do regularly have the conversations with clients as we're leading into their final stages of preparation, and they're just simply asking me, like, shouldn't I be doing more hiking? Shouldn't I be doing 3 or 4 or 5 days worth of hiking and, getting rid of some of the other sessions? And yeah, you can do it, but it's not strictly necessary. If you put together a really nicely structured program, if you've been progressing things over week by week, month by month, you really can get away with just one longer hike and one shorter thing a week. And this is not just preparing you for a weekend on the trail, but this does work for things like Kilimanjaro, things like the Pacific Crest Trail, things like the Annapurna Circuit, all these really big adventures. If you do the right preparation, you can really, really, really streamline the process. And as I said, it's not to say that the purely hiking or lots of hiking approach doesn't work, but this approach is a lot more time efficient and in my opinion will actually get you fitter and more prepared for the trail than simply just throwing in a whole bunch of hiking kilometers as you go through. So if you're looking at your training program right now and you're like, I'm doing 3 or 4 hikes a week or walks a week, and that really is creeping up into time limits and it really is creeping into your life, and maybe your body's getting a bit battered and broken down, just know there is a better way. If you break down your training, if you're smart about your structure, if you take all this information from the podcast and apply it into your week, you can cut down that time commitment, you can make it easier, and you can reduce your hiking down to one long hike a week and one shorter one. That's a little bit of food for thought for you today, guys. I really do hope you think about that. It really might seem counterintuitive. You might be a bit nervous about going that approach. And if you are, please reach out to me and I'm more than happy to give you some advice. But in all honesty, for 95% of hiking and trekking adventures, this will be enough for you if you do it right. So have a think about it, have a wonder, and see if that can apply into your life and into your preparations. So I do hope you've enjoyed this episode today, guys. As always, if you have enjoyed it, if you have got some value out of it, I would absolutely love if you could leave a review and share this podcast with a friend. It really would mean the world to me. But that's enough from me today, and we'll talk to you very, very soon. Bye.